So the next thing I'm going to talk about is how we could commonly injure our back with things like sweeping, mopping, which will include Swiffering in that, and vacuuming. So if you can, I believe the newer vacuums that come out where the motor is closer to you is the best way to go, because the weight of the vacuum is a lot closer to your center of gravity. If you have an older vacuum where the motor is in the head, that's a lot more weight or resistance away from your body, and so therefore there's a lot more torque that your body has to produce to get that head moving. It's not to say you can't vacuum, but what I'd want people to realize is everything that I'm talking about still applies, but you might have to tighten your trunk muscles a lot more because there's a lot bigger weight further away from your body compared to a model where the motor is closer to you. So again, the common pitfall with vacuuming is that people do not move their feet. They stay in a stance and then they bend over and they do this. And so again, when we bend forward repetitively, that puts repetitive flexion stress on our ligaments and our joints, and then our back muscles have to work that much harder to try and protect our spine, and that can make them feel very fatigued and crampy. The other thing that often happens is with our neck likes to follow where our hand goes. So again, as I go forward, my head wants to go forward. And again, for neck patients, this can cause repetitive stress to the mid-cervical. So with vacuuming, we have two choices. We could either make sure to walk wherever we go, and so as I walk, my arm stays next to my side. So even with one of those vacuums that has a heavier head, this is safe because you can keep your arm next to you, the lever arm's a lot shorter, and if you're having to push the vacuum and have to work a little bit harder, it's a lot easier to keep your stomach muscles and butt muscles tight if you had to support something here versus trying to push something and keep your body stabilized. If the idea of walking with something with your arm fixed next to your body just feels unnatural, then the other thing we'd want to work on is making sure that as you vacuum, you just make sure to move your hand and your feet at the same time. So again, if I move my hand and my feet, first of all, my legs do a lot of the work to help propel the vacuum as well as bring it back to me. The other thing that happens when my feet move with my body is that it's a lot easier to guide the head with my body because my legs and my hands together help dictate where my pelvis is going to go. The last thing is when my feet and my hands move together, it is a lot easier for my chest to stay upright, which is great for the neck. Now the neck, you can look down at what you're doing, but instead of the head going forward to track with the arm, it just stays next to my body, okay? Now, of course, people would say, well, what happens when I want to vacuum underneath a piece of furniture? So depending on the piece of furniture, so if it was a table, then you would put one leg forward, you would bend your knees, and if you want to stay fixed, you would brace your hand on your thigh, keep your chest up, tailbone back. I'm going to tighten my stomach muscles, tighten my butt muscles, keep my chest up, and I'm still going to use my feet. I'm just pivoting like so to get underneath the structure at hand, okay? Or I could hold on to the table to support my spine, bend my knees, and brace here if the first position felt too awkward or maybe someone didn't have the best balance. Obviously, if I had to go even lower, like under the couch, if I could, I would get down on one knee, and then if I had to go lower than that, again, to get under the surface, I would keep my chest up, I would take my butt back, and I would still tighten, and I would brace with everything that I have, because this is a more awkward position for the spine because of how long the lever is becoming. So I'd really keep the stomach muscles tight, buttock muscles tight, chin in, as I went underneath something that was very low. With vacuuming, there's nothing wrong ever. I mean, the nice thing about these vacuums is the heads are very mobile. Obviously, you can detach them. There's lots of options for making the vacuum even lighter and shorter depending on what it is that you're having to do. But again, if I was trying to get something way farther back and I felt, again, I need to go in this position even with a different setup, then I would still want to keep my tailbone up, my chin in, and I'm again coming down and I'm moving my body with the vacuum. If I'm in this position, it is better for my back, but if I don't move, my neck still wants to hyperextend to see what the vacuum is doing. So again, if I want to go lower and I'm trying to get underneath something, by moving my entire body, my head stays in better alignment with my spine. So next, we're going to talk about how to mop or Swiffer. And it's very similar to the vacuuming concept, with the only difference being when we have to scrub something. So again, really quickly, the common pitfall for mopping is people tend to want to plant their feet and scrub. And so all of the things we just talked about with the vacuum, either walking with the Swiffer or again, stepping with the mop, come into play. So by moving my feet and my hands together, I can keep my abdominals tight, chin in, support my spine. And again, how hard I have to brace with my muscles is more relative to how sore my back or my neck is. If they're only mildly sore, I might only have to brace like 10%. If I'm in the middle of a flare-up, I might have to brace a lot harder to be perfect because of how sensitive my spine is. So the biggest difference between vacuuming and mopping is when people want to actually scrub something off the floor. So what people commonly do is they tend to plant their feet and they bend over and they do this kind of jerking motion to their spine to try and scrub something. So if I wanted to scrub something and be safe, again, I'd bring my feet a little wider apart. I would keep my abdominals tight and I would try and squat. So as I squat down, you have to appreciate the floor is going to push back. So the more I push with my hands, if I'm not using my muscles, the floor pushes back and it creates a shearing force to my back. If I use my legs, I negate a lot of that. So I tighten my abs, I squat down, and my legs are what drive the head of the mop or the Swiffer, whatever you're using, to help get that spot out. Again, if I'm in this position, because my legs are no longer helping, the floor is going to push back against the force of your arms and your back's going to feel it, as well as your neck. So again, if I'm in this position and I use my legs, my chin stays in, my legs do the work, my abdominals are bracing, and again, how hard my abdominals or gluteals have to brace is related to how sore something is. And then I could go back to moving my feet around. I didn't have anything, but again, if you had something like a steam mop or some people have like a wet vac to do their floors, then again, you'd probably follow all the principles of the vacuuming. Again, you might have to work a little bit harder with your trunk muscles depending on where the motor is on those things, but again, still all the same principles as we do for vacuuming. If I had to sweep, so again, either if I'm sweeping the kitchen, it's something like this. So what gets people is, again, if they keep their feet planted and they sweep, they tend to flex and rotate, flex and rotate. If I'm trying to sweep, I would want to step and move. So again, I look at my object and I step and move. So I would pull my leg in at the same time that my hands come in. I would keep my abdominals and my buttocks tight. And then in this case, I might have to brace a little bit more on my obliques to make sure I don't side bend or twist. And so I would want to pretend that someone was going to tickle my rib cage. And so I would lightly tighten these lateral muscles to help me stabilize when my arms go out to the side, as opposed to when I was in this position, this is more flexion extension. So hopefully sweeping, it's not like outdoor sweeping where there might be bigger weighted objects like heavy leaves or debris. But sweeping hopefully is just this thing where, again, making sure that people remember to move their feet in whatever direction that they're going. So again, they don't plant and twist.